I never thought I'd be posting something like this, but here we are. I need to get this off my chest. So, my sister, yeah, let's just say I've learned a lot about family, trust, and betrayal in the last few weeks. To give you some context, I've always had a pretty close relationship with my sister, or at least, that's how I thought it was. We'd been through a lot together growing up, broke into my first car together, don't judge, got into trouble, shared secrets. You know, normal sibling stuff. I always thought I could trust her with anything. She was my rock. Or, so I thought. A few months ago, I started dating someone new, let's call her Sarah. She was sweet, smart, and things were really clicking between us. I even introduced her to my sister after a couple of weeks. No big deal, right? Well, that's when things started to feel off. At first, it was subtle. Little comments my sister would make about Sarah, compliments that seemed, well, too much. Like she was pushing Sarah and I together a little too hard. I didn't think much of it at first. I figured my sister was just being supportive, maybe she liked Sarah more than I realized. But looking back now, it was like a weird kind of setup. I didn't see it then. Trust me, if I had, things would have turned out a lot differently. Things were fine for a while. Sarah and I were getting closer, but then came the first real red flag. It wasn't something huge, more like a small, uncomfortable moment that I brushed off. One weekend, Sarah and I decided to take a little trip to the coast. It was supposed to be a relaxing getaway. I was excited. But the night before we left, my sister, let's call her Emma, pulled me aside. She looked a little nervous, which was unusual for her. She asked me if I was sure about Sarah, if I could really trust her. I didn't think much of it. People have doubts about relationships, right? It was a normal conversation. But then she dropped this bombshell. Emma told me that she'd seen Sarah talking to some guy at a bar a few months before we started dating. She didn't know what they were talking about, but it made her feel uncomfortable. I was stunned. My sister was always the protective type, but this felt off. Why hadn't she told me sooner? And why was she bringing it up now, right before I left for this trip? I asked her if she was sure, if maybe she'd misunderstood, but she seemed so convinced. It planted a seed of doubt in my mind. I almost canceled the trip, but Sarah was excited, so I pushed through, hoping it was just some overprotective sibling stuff. Spoiler alert, I should have listened to my gut. So, I go on this trip with Sarah, and I'm trying to shake off Emma's warning, but it lingers in the back of my mind. Everything seems fine at first. Sarah and I are having a great time, laughing, exploring, just enjoying each other's company. But then, on the second day, things took a turn. We were walking along the beach when Sarah's phone started buzzing like crazy. She was getting texts, calls, non-stop. I didn't think much of it at first, but when I asked who it was, she hesitated. I could see her eyes flicker, like she was trying to decide whether to tell me. She said it was nothing, just work stuff. I believed her. But then later that night, we went to dinner, and Sarah got up to take a call. She didn't mention who it was, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. As she walked away, I noticed the guy at the bar, the one my sister had mentioned. He was sitting at a table across the room, looking straight at me. My heart sank. It was him. I don't know why I didn't confront her then. Maybe I was scared of what I might hear, or maybe I was just trying to avoid drama. But I felt like I was losing control of the situation. And the worst part? I wasn't sure if I could trust Sarah anymore. The next day, I couldn't keep it inside anymore. I needed to confront Sarah. I waited until we were alone, away from the beach, and asked her about the guy from the bar. I tried to keep my voice calm, but inside, I was freaking out. Her reaction was not what I expected. She froze for a second, then laughed it off. "What guy?" she said, trying to make it seem like I was imagining things. But I wasn't buying it. I pushed harder, telling her I'd seen him at the restaurant and that my sister had warned me about him. At first, she seemed defensive, but then, she changed. She got quiet, almost sad. She admitted she knew him, but she said it was nothing. Just an old friend from her hometown who had reached out when she was in town a while back. She claimed it was harmless, that he'd been trying to get in touch, but that she hadn't seen him since. I didn't believe it. Something felt off. But what really hit me was the way she reacted when I asked if there was anything she wasn't telling me. She got this cold look in her eyes. And it hit me, she was hiding something. I didn't know what, but I felt it deep in my gut. I should have ended things right there. But I didn't. I stuck around, hoping I was wrong, hoping I was overthinking things. The emotional roller coaster was just starting. A few days passed after the confrontation, and things were awkward. I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right, but Sarah was being so sweet and trying to make up for the weirdness. I kept telling myself maybe I was overthinking things. I wanted to believe her, to trust her. But then, it happened. I woke up one morning to a text message on my phone from an unknown number. It was a single line, "She's not who you think she is." My heart stopped. I had no idea who it was from, but I immediately thought of the guy from the bar. I showed Sarah the text later that day. She looked genuinely confused, and she insisted it wasn't her ex or anyone she knew. But I didn't buy it. At this point, I was feeling like I was in some kind of sick drama that I couldn't escape. Every little thing felt like a clue, and I started to question everything. I told her I was going to find out who sent the message, and she begged me not to. "Trust me," she said. "Please don't do this." That's when I realized I was already too deep into this mess. If I didn't get to the bottom of it now, I'd probably regret it for the rest of my life. So, I decided to do what I should have done from the start. I began digging into the mystery. I reached out to the number that sent me the cryptic message. No response. I checked social media, tried to track down the guy from the bar, anything I could think of. But I couldn't find any concrete evidence linking him to Sarah. Then, one evening, as I was sitting in my apartment, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I checked the peephole. It was a man I didn't recognize. His face seemed familiar, though, and my stomach dropped when I realized who it was, the guy from the bar. I didn't open the door immediately, but I watched through the peephole as he stood there, nervously glancing around. Something felt seriously off. I called Sarah. She didn't answer, so I left a message, telling her what was going on. I finally opened the door, and he was standing there, looking awkward. He introduced himself as Matt, and when I asked why he was there, he said he needed to talk to me about Sarah. I didn't know what to expect, but this felt like a bad situation waiting to explode. Matt started talking, and what he said hit me like a ton of bricks. He said that Sarah wasn't being honest with me. That they'd been seeing each other for months before I met her, and that she'd lied to him about being in a relationship with me. He had no idea she was involved with anyone else. I was speechless. The betrayal I felt at that moment was suffocating. I stood there, staring at Matt as his words sunk in. I couldn't process it at first. This whole situation was unreal. Matt went on, explaining how Sarah had been leading him on, making promises that she clearly didn't intend to keep. He said he'd confronted her a few times, but she'd always managed to turn it around, make him feel like he was the crazy one. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to yell, to throw him out, but I was numb. I let him keep talking. He said he'd seen us together, and he was pissed. I could see that. But he also seemed broken, like someone who'd been played, just like me. Finally, I managed to speak. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked him, my voice shaky. "What do you want from me?" Matt just shook his head. "I'm not asking for anything. I just think you deserve to know the truth before it's too late. She's been messing with both of us, and I don't want you to be another one of her victims." I didn't know what hurt more, the fact that Sarah had been hiding this from me, or that my sister had played a role in all of this. I didn't know who to trust anymore. After Matt left, I called Sarah. No answer. Of course. I felt the sting of her silence like a slap to the face. How had I missed all of this? I thought I knew her, but clearly, I didn't. I couldn't sit with this anymore. I needed answers, and I wasn't going to let Sarah avoid this conversation. I waited for hours, hoping she'd call me back, but nothing. By the time I finally heard from her, I was shaking with anger and hurt. She called late that night, and I wasted no time. "We need to talk," I said, my voice cold. She sounded surprised, but I didn't care. The calm before the storm was over. When she showed up at my place, I didn't hold back. "Matt came by today," I said, watching her face for any sign of guilt. She went pale, but she tried to cover it up with a forced smile. "Matt? What's he?" "Don't play dumb, Sarah," I snapped. "He told me everything. About you too. About all the lies." She froze. Her eyes darted around like she was trying to figure out how to talk her way out of this. The silence hung in the air for what felt like forever. Then, she finally spoke, her voice trembling. "It wasn't like that," she said, her eyes welling up with tears. "I was trying to break it off with him, but he wouldn't let go. I cut her off. Don't lie to me. You've been lying to me this whole time. About him. About everything." She started to cry, and I almost felt bad, but the rage inside me was too strong. All I wanted was for her to admit what she'd done, to stop making excuses. "I'm sorry," she whispered, but her apology felt empty. How could I forgive this? How could I trust her again after everything? I told her to leave. I couldn't even look at her anymore. After Sarah left, the real weight of everything hit me. But something else was eating at me. I couldn't stop thinking about my sister. Emma. She had been the one who planted the first seed of doubt in my mind, and now, looking back, I realized she had known something was wrong all along. Why didn't she tell me sooner? Why did she let me get so deep into this? I called Emma. She answered after the second ring, sounding unusually calm. I didn't waste time with pleasantries. "I know about Sarah," I said. "And I know you knew." There was a long silence on the other end, and then Emma sighed. "I didn't want to hurt you, okay? I didn't want to be the one to break it to you." I was furious now. "So you let me walk straight into this mess? You knew she was lying to me, and you said nothing." "I wasn't sure what to do," Emma replied, her voice soft, almost apologetic. "I thought maybe you'd figure it out on your own. But when I saw how serious you were about her, I didn't want to ruin it." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was making excuses for not helping me. I felt betrayed on a whole new level. My own sister, who I trusted more than anyone, had stood by while I was being played. "Emma, I don't know how to look at you the same way anymore. You should have had my back. You didn't." She started to apologize again, but I cut her off. "I don't want to hear it. I need space." I hung up without another word. The days after everything unfolded felt like a blur. I was emotionally drained, confused, and betrayed by two of the people I trusted most. It wasn't just Sarah anymore, it was my sister, too. I didn't know who to trust, who had my back. Everything felt like a lie, a game I didn't even know I was playing. I started pulling away from everyone. Friends started calling to check in on me, but I couldn't bring myself to talk to them. How could I explain what had happened? I felt like I was losing control of everything. I tried to go back to my usual routine: work, gym, the things I did to keep my mind off things. But nothing felt right. Every time I saw someone I knew, I felt like they could see the mess I was inside. I wasn't the same person anymore. I felt like a fool, and worse, I didn't know if I could ever trust anyone the way I used to. I thought about confronting Sarah again, but what would that accomplish? She'd lied to me once already. I had nothing left to say to her. As for my sister, I wasn't sure if I'd ever feel the same about her again. Trust was broken, and it wasn't something that could be repaired easily. The most painful part? I realized that this whole experience had changed me. I wasn't the person I was before all this. I was more guarded now, more suspicious. And I didn't know if I could ever go back to the person who was naive enough to trust so easily. A few weeks passed, and I was still trying to piece my life together. I spent a lot of time just sitting alone, processing everything that had happened. The anger was still there, but it was starting to fade into something more resigned. I didn't know if I was healing or just numb. One day, while I was cleaning up some things in my apartment, I came across an old notebook, something I'd kept for years, filled with random thoughts, memories, and half-written ideas. I flipped through the pages, and one entry caught my eye. It was a letter I had written to myself a long time ago, back when life felt simpler, before the world got complicated. In that letter, I talked about trust. About how trust was the foundation of everything: friendships, relationships, family. I remembered how I had always believed in the good in people, how I thought if you gave enough of yourself, people would do the same in return. But now I wasn't so sure. The betrayal from both Sarah and Emma had shattered that belief. It was like a piece of me had been torn away, and I wasn't sure I could ever put it back together. I sat there, staring at the letter, realizing that I had to rebuild my trust not just in others, but in myself. I had let my guard down, and I had allowed myself to be deceived. But that didn't mean I couldn't learn from this. It didn't mean I had to be a cynic, either. I needed to find a way forward. The question was, could I trust anyone again? Could I trust myself? The days started to feel a little less heavy after that moment of clarity. I knew I couldn't let the betrayal define me forever, but the truth was, I was still stuck in a place of uncertainty. I couldn't go back to the way things were before, trusting people blindly, expecting the best from them. But I also didn't want to become jaded, cynical, or suspicious of everyone. I decided to take some time for myself. I booked a solo trip to the mountains, something I'd always wanted to do but never had the chance. No distractions, no one to answer to. Just me, the quiet, and a chance to clear my mind. It wasn't an escape, but a way to reset. When I got there, surrounded by nature's calm, I could finally think without the noise of betrayal echoing in my head. I spent the first few days hiking, reading, and just reflecting. Slowly, I started to realize that the anger I had been holding onto wasn't doing me any favors. I wasn't going to get closure from Sarah or Emma. The only closure I could find was within myself. By the end of the trip, I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to dwell on the past anymore. I couldn't change what had happened, and I couldn't change the people who had hurt me. But I could decide how I moved forward. I had to stop letting their mistakes control my future. I wasn't going to forget what happened, but I was going to let it go. And more importantly, I was going to start rebuilding. Not just my trust in others, but my trust in myself. It's been a few months since I came back from that trip. Honestly, it feels like I've come a long way from the broken mess I was when everything blew up. I'm not saying I've fully bounced back, I don't think I'll ever be that person again, but I've learned to live with what happened. Rebuilding trust has been a slow process, and it's not just about trusting others again. It's about trusting myself, my instincts, my judgment. I had to come to terms with the fact that I had ignored red flags, that I let people into my life who didn't deserve a place there. And I had to forgive myself for that. I've started seeing a therapist, something I never thought I needed before, but now I see the value. Talking through my feelings has helped me clear the fog. I've also reconnected with old friends, people who knew me before everything went sideways. It's been a good reminder of who I was before all this drama, and that person still exists underneath it all. But the biggest change has been with my sister. After the fallout, I didn't talk to her for a while. I needed distance to figure things out. But after some time and a lot of reflection, I decided to reach out. I wasn't sure what I expected, but I felt like if I didn't try, I'd regret it forever. She was surprised, but she listened. Emma apologized over and over for her part in everything. And while I wasn't ready to just forget and move on, I could see she genuinely felt remorse. We didn't make up right away, but we started rebuilding our relationship, slowly and carefully. Trust is something that takes time, and we're both learning that. Looking back now, I can't deny that this whole experience has changed me. It would be easy to say that I've learned to trust no one or that I'm completely jaded, but that's not the case. What I've learned is more complicated. First, I've learned the importance of listening to my instincts. I ignored the red flags when I should have paid attention. The gut feelings were there, but I dismissed them for the sake of not wanting to make waves, of not wanting to believe the worst in people. I won't make that mistake again. I've also learned that people are capable of both good and bad. We all make mistakes, and sometimes, people hurt us intentionally or not. But that doesn't mean we have to hold on to the pain forever. It's hard, but I've realized that forgiveness is more about freeing myself than about excusing someone else's actions. It's not easy, but it's necessary for my peace of mind. Another lesson I've learned is that betrayal is a part of life, but it doesn't have to define you. Yeah, Sarah and Emma both let me down in ways I never expected, but I've moved forward. It's not about holding grudges anymore. It's about finding the strength to keep going, to trust again, and to believe that the future can be better than the past. I guess I'm saying that sometimes, life hands you lessons you didn't ask for. But those lessons are what shape you into a stronger, more resilient person. The person I am now isn't the same as the person I was before all this, but I'm starting to like this new version of myself. And that's something I didn't expect. Now that I've had some time to process everything, I feel like I'm in a better place. It's been a journey, one full of unexpected twists and turns, but I've come out the other side stronger and more self-aware. I'm not where I want to be just yet, but I'm on the right path. One of the hardest things I've had to come to terms with is the idea of letting go. Letting go of the anger, the hurt, and the expectations I had for Sarah, Emma, and even myself. But holding on to that pain was only keeping me stuck. And life moves on, whether you're ready or not. As for the future, I don't have all the answers. I'm not jumping into any new relationships just yet, but I'm open to them. I've learned to trust slowly, to set boundaries, and to value honesty above all else. I know it's going to take time to fully trust again, but I'm willing to do the work. I'm still figuring things out, but I'm doing it on my own terms now. I've learned that being true to myself is the most important thing. I'm no longer the guy who blindly followed others, who trusted without question. I'm now the guy who's learned to trust his own judgment first and foremost. If there's one thing I could share with anyone going through something similar, it's this: don't let the betrayal of others make you doubt your own worth. It's easy to get lost in the anger and hurt, but at the end of the day, you have control over your future. And sometimes, the hardest part is walking away and deciding that you deserve better. So, that's it. That's my story. And while I can't change what happened, I'm proud of where I am now. It's a long road, but I'm finally moving forward.